This is Jesus speaking. This is the resurrected Christ. This is after John has gone on the Isle of Patmos. We know he's been exiled there because he's preaching the word and he's standing on stuff. And it doesn't always fit man's tradition. And when it doesn't fit tradition, let me tell you what happened in old-fashioned churches. They would wave their checkbook. Either you change it to what I want or I'm out of here. The devil is a lie. You and your checkbook, sit down and listen to the Spirit of God. What would happen in more religious churches is that it's like, if you don't do this, I'm going to take a group of people and I'm going to leave. Well, guess what? You and them, sit down with your folding chairs and be led by the Spirit of God. And so what happened was John was teaching Jesus, and he wasn't worried about Jewish customs and Jewish traditions. He wasn't worried about doing it the way everybody had always done it. He was so in tune with God that John was the one who laid his head on the chest of Jesus and heard a word that revolutionized the listeners. And because of this, he was persecuted. And because of this, he was in prison. And they said, prison ain't good enough for John. We're going to exile him. We're going to put him on a boat and take him over to an isle called Patmos. Ain't nobody going to be there but him and a couple of animals. He's going to sit in that cave and he's going to be sorry that he didn't do it the way we do it, the way we always done it, the way religion does it, the way tradition does it. But God fooled them. Because when they put him in the isle, he went into the cave. And Minister and I had the privilege to go to Israel. Any of y'all ever been to Israel? If you ever get to go on the Isle of Patmos. Because we walked in that cave, and ironically, when you think of a cave, you think the whole thing is closed and just the front is open. But God, in his strategic manner, had drilled a hole that overlooked the water and caused him to see the land where he had come from. And as he sat there, God began to speak to him. And if you remember in Revelation, he says, I want you to write down. He said the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servant things which must shortly take place. And he told him, he said, I want you to write down the things that have happened and that are about to happen. And he told him, he says, and blessed is he who reads those things and who hears the words of this prophecy. And so that's the setting in which Revelation is. A man who dared to go against tradition and religion. A man who, after laying his head on the breast of our Savior, heard the word and preached it and didn't care if he was exiled for it. And so now, here we are, the resurrected Christ is talking to him, and this is what he says. Write to the angel of the church of Philadelphia. Now, Philadelphia is the church of brotherly love. So this ain't some wayward, wild, out there people. These were the brothers. He said, write to them and say, here is the message of the Holy One and True One who has the key of David, so that when he opens, no one will close. And when he closes, no one will open. I know about your activities. Look, I have opened in front of you a door that no one, listen to this in the Jerusalem Bible, will be able to close. And I know that though you are not very strong, you have kept my commandments and not disowned my name. Now I'm a preacher and I got IRM in mind. And I'm a preacher and I have you in mind. Because we're not all that sometimes. And we feel inadequate and a little bit weak. And I don't know everything about God. But God says, I know your activities. I know you're not as strong as maybe you think the next person is or you hope you will be. God says, but there's something about you I like. You keep my commandments and you won't disown my name. And so what we see here is that the resurrected Christ says to him, I have the key of David. Y'all ever heard that before? Yeah. I have the key of David. I've been reading the Bible for a long time and I've been studying the Bible. I listen to theologians and apologists. I read constantly because I want to know. One time when I was a teenager, I read the Bible and I remember that Ezra was one who knew the word. And when the word had been destroyed, they said that Ezra went back and penned the word for word because he had memorized it. And then later on his son came along and he had so infiltrated his son with the word of God that once again when they were captive and they were moved to a land where there was no word, they were able to pen the word again. And somebody say, see how you know they ain't forget some word? Because amazingly, sitting in that same Israel, I went down into the Museum of the Dead Sea Scrolls where they dug them up from millions of years ago and thousands of years ago, and the words literally are verbatim. Verbatim. God can imprint the word on your heart in such a way that even without the book, can remember the word. And I'm going to talk today about the difference between the book, the letter, and the spirit. And so he says to him here, I have the key of David. And I looked at that and I said, God, we always talk about the keys, but we don't talk about the key. And what the Lord is saying to us today is there is a wisdom key. It's singular. Let me tell you what a key is, first of all. A key is that tool or instrument used to gain access. You know, we were closed out from some stuff. And Hebrews talks very firmly about the fact that we were in darkness one time. Not only Hebrews, but other books about there was a time when you were in darkness, but now you are in light. There was a time you were in ignorance, but now you are in understanding. And so he talks about the fact that I will give you access to some stuff because I am the key. And then a key is also the crucial element. You know, when somebody say, no, the key ingredient is, you say, well, I tried it. Mine didn't taste like it. What the key ingredient is. Sometimes something is essential. It's crucial. It's vital. It won't work if you don't have that. Well, Christ is that key. See, because we try and have all kinds of other junk. We think this and we think that. And if you do this and if you don't do that, all that stuff is trivial. Because Christ says that I am in the midst of you. That's the key element. That's the crucial element. A key is also an answer. And I thought about how when you have a test, right, and you want, like I was a teacher and I would get my students to check my papers for me because you know you get inundated. I would say, here's the answer key. The key is the answer. And Christ wants us to know today that he is the key. He is the answer. Answer to what? Answer to everything. And then a key is a source of decoding. And my mind ran over to Africa when they found the Rosetta Stone. And they found out that this was the key that unlocks every language of mankind. And so now for a couple $100, any language you want to learn, you can call Rosetta Stone, buy it, and there's a key that teaches you how to read the language, how to understand, and how to speak the language in a short period of time. God says, I'm the key. So today as we talk about the key, keep those things in mind. But why did he say the key of David? Because there was something special about David. I don't know what you think of when you hear David, but when I hear David, my mind always runs to a man after God's own heart. But then on the heel of that, you also said, well, he wasn't perfect because he committed adultery with Bathsheba and then premeditated murder and killed her husband. Right? What's that about? And yet God said he's a man after my own heart. God said, I'm not interested in your works. I'm not interested in your legalism. I'm not interested in your rules. I'm not interested in your religious traditions. See, because I had a whole bunch of Pharisees and Sadducees who kept all the rules and did the religion the same way every time. They made the furniture just right. They made the music. You only can do 2 songs. And they said you got to be out by this time. And how dare you come in here with these type of clothes and all this stuff. And yet, Jesus called them blind guides. He called them sons of the devil. He said, you're a bunch of whitewashed tombstones. You stand at the entrance of my truth and at the entrance of my liberty and in front of my spirit, and you dare to prevent other people to go in because you are so bound with your tradition. But inside, as whitewashed as you are on the outside, inside you stink because you dead men bones. You're still as mean as a snake. You're still as nasty as a pig. You still got hang-ups that if the truth be told and the covers were pulled back and the roof was lifted up, you ain't all together like you try to make it, but you religious. And so what we find with David is David wasn't perfect in his doings, but David didn't use it as an excuse to be nasty either. David didn't use it as an excuse to always walk on the other side of truth and holiness. But David fell. But this is the thing about David. When David did anything, good or bad, David always went beyond the natural, which are the symptoms, which are the evidence, which operate in your 5 senses. David always sprinkled right off of that into the presence of the Lord. And David said, remember when he fell with Bathsheba and then he premeditated the murder of her husband? David didn't say, I know better than to do adultery. What was I thinking to murder somebody? David didn't say that. David went straight and said, against thee and thee only have I sinned. Because David understood my symptoms are only a condition of what's going on inside. My symptoms are only an evidence of my relationship with God. And somewhere, God, I must have forgot who you were. the key of David. What he was saying is, I'm the one that gets past all your little petty idiosyncrasies in this natural realm. I'm the one who allows you to see the real importance of it. I'm the one who allows the word to come alive to you and the spirit to speak life to you.